Welcome to our AITA, where I've decided to show her boyfriend what happens when a man mistakes public humiliation for a sense of humor and calls the wrong woman a gold digger. Our next Reddit post comes from a 29-year-old woman who heard her boyfriend say, in front of a table full of people, that she was only with him for the money. The tiny detail is that a good chunk of his lifestyle existed because she was paying for it, organizing it, cleaning it, managing it, and basically dragging his life back from the grave with duct tape, coffee, and silent rage. So, when he decided to play Wounded Millionaire, she decided to play Audit with a moving truck. And honestly, it was educational. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and my ex-boyfriend Mason is 34. We were together for almost 4 years. He worked in high-end car detailing, the kind of guy with an annoying profile full of glossy black cars under LED lights, like he's restoring the Sistine Chapel. I work in branding and digital client management. When we first started dating, Mason seemed generous, stable, very confident. That kind of guy who puts a hand on your waist in public like he owns the sidewalk. At first, it felt like charm. Later, I realized it was just habit. About 9 months into the relationship, he insisted I move into his condo. I said I wanted to contribute somehow, and he made a huge show of being a gentleman. Said a real man doesn't charge his woman rent. His exact words. He said I could just help out with the little things. And that's when I made the classic mistake every tired woman makes when she still thinks she's building something with someone. I believed him. The little things started with groceries and the internet bill. Then it turned into dinner almost every night because Mason never had time to cook. Then it became the new coffee machine because the old one was embarrassing. Then it became the couch, the dining table, the bar stools, the laundry storage unit, bedding, towels, cookware, lamps, rugs, the microwave, the bedroom TV, the printer, the office chairs, the balcony plants, the indoor cameras, and even the stupid air fryer he loved showing off to guests like he had bought it with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. His sweat, by the way, was usually being spent taking shirtless mirror selfies in the condo gym. Mason also convinced me to help with his business. Just until I get things organized, he said. So off I went. I redid the logo, replied to clients, fixed the scheduling, standardized quotes, negotiated with vendors, handled complaints, set up message automation, created campaigns, wrote copy, managed follow-ups, and even trained the receptionist. All for free. Because he said that in the future, once the company blew up, I'd be sharing in the reward. Apparently that reward was imaginary, because the only thing that actually kept growing was my credit card bill. Before anyone asked why I put up with it for so long, the answer is simple and humiliating. Mason was extremely good at making me feel ridiculous every time I noticed something was wrong. If I brought up money, he'd say couples don't keep score. If I asked about getting paid for the work I did for his business, he'd say I was acting like an employee instead of a partner. If I said I was tired of handling everything, he'd hug me and say I was the only person he trusted. And just like that, there I was, emotional like a premium grade clown. His family helped keep the theater running too. His mother, Denise, treated me with that icy politeness that somehow feels worse than a slap. She never openly insulted me, never said anything directly cruel, but she always found a way to shrink me. She'd ask if I was enjoying the comfortable life. She'd comment that Mason had always had a big heart. One time, at his birthday dinner, after I had set up the entire table, decorations, catering, everything, she looked at it and said, "Well, it's nice that you know how to be useful. I should have dumped the cake in her lap." Instead, I thanked her, because apparently I still needed more humiliation to grow as a person. About 5 months ago, I started noticing Mason's business wasn't nearly as great as he claimed it was. Clients were complaining about delays, vendors were asking for payment, employees were chasing him for money, and Mason was spending more and more time pretending to be rich on Instagram. He traded in his car for a newer one, started going out more, and had a vague, slippery explanation for every direct question. At the same time, I was paying for basically our whole daily life. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. We had dinner with 2 of his couple friends at the condo. It was one of those dinners where everyone drinks wine above their budget and talks like they're in a reality show for people who think they understand investing. At one point, one of the girlfriends mentioned she was secretly saving money in case she ever broke up with her boyfriend because smart women keep a safety fund. I laughed and Cy agreed. Mason, already a little drunk and clearly desperate for attention, said, "Alyssa thinks the same way because she always knows where there's something to gain." I thought he was joking. I gave a tight, awkward smile. Then he kept going. He literally said, "Let's be honest, if she ever leaves, she'll take whatever she can. Gold diggers always leave with the silverware." The silence after that was hideous. One of his friends did that weak little laugh men do when they know something was gross, but would rather stay in the herd than have a spine. I asked, "Excuse me, what?" And instead of doing the basic human miracle of backing down, Mason decided to dig straight to hell. He said, "Come on, babe, don't act shocked. You like comfort. I don't think you'd be with me if I were broke." His mother wasn't at dinner, thankfully, but her spirit was clearly sitting in his chair swirling the wine. I asked if he wanted to repeat that. He did. He said I was the kind of woman who knows exactly where to land. And then he gave that revolting little smirk like he thought he was being clever. Somewhere between divorced uncle humor and a passive-aggressive threat, I stood up. I didn't scream. I didn't throw wine in his face, which, honestly, was a miracle because I was seeing red. I just said, "If you think I'm a gold digger, Tomorrow you're going to learn the difference between interest and ownership. And I left. I spent the night at my friend Tori's place. I cried from anger, made a mental list of everything I had bought, and for the first time in a long time I felt less sad than disgusted. Because one thing is being used by someone manipulative. Another thing entirely is being used and then told you're the parasite in the story. That's not just cruelty. That's performance art made out of trash. The next morning, Mason started texting. First he said I was being dramatic. Then he said it was just a joke. Then he said I had embarrassed him in front of his friends. Then, in a burst of emotional intelligence that could only be described as cactus level, he texted, "You know my mother was always right about you." That's when the sadness died and I entered a very specific spiritual state that can only be described as peace through logistics. I called to friends of my brothers who do moving work, asked for help, pulled out a folder where I keep warranties, receipts, proof of purchase, and old statements because my dad always said love ends, but good documentation can stop an idiot in his tracks. Then I went to the condo. Mason wasn't there. He had gone out, probably thinking I'd come crawling back in tears. Tragic. I let myself in with my key, filmed every room before touching anything, and got to work. I took the couch I bought. I took the dining table. I took the fur chairs. I took the island stools. I took the coffee machine, the air fryer, the microwave, and the bedroom TV. I took the guest room mattress used in the office whenever we fought. I took the lamps, rugs, living room curtains, laundry unit, floating office shelves, both ergonomic chairs, the printer, the cameras, the framed art, the plants, the cookware I had paid for, the bedding, the towels, the entry mirror, and even the portable water purifier. I didn't rip out anything built-in. I didn't damage anything. I didn't take a single thing that belonged to him. I just removed what was mine. The apartment started echoing in a way that was almost poetic. And this is the part that made half his family call me a thief, since I was also the one managing the business's digital operations. I removed my cards from the systems, canceled subscriptions under my name, removed my access, disconnected my number from the business WhatsApp, and emailed the clients I personally handled to let them know I was no longer involved, and that all future issues should be directed to Mason himself. Politely, no public meltdown, no sabotage. I simply returned his business to its rightful owner. Apparently, he did not enjoy experiencing his own company without the free employee, who had been keeping it alive. When Mason got back to the condo and saw the empty living room, he called me screaming. He called the police. I waited. I showed them receipts, proof of delivery, card statements, and video of the removal. The officer looked at him, looked at the apartment that now sounded like emotional bankruptcy, looked at my folder of documents, and had the kind of face that said what professionalism wouldn't allow his mouth to say. "My guy, you did this to yourself." Mason started shouting that I was ruining his life. I told him no, I was just uninstalling my investment. Now, his family is tearing me apart. Denise sent me a voice message calling me low, vindictive, and opportunistic. One of his ads said decent women don't strip a man's home bare. Two of his friends posted vague little stories about classless gold diggers. And Mason himself is telling everyone I stole everything because I couldn't handle hearing the truth. So, am I the asshole for taking absolutely everything that was mine after my boyfriend called me a gold digger? In the comments, the opinion was beautifully split between "you are my hero" and "this is the domestic version of a hostile takeover." One comment said, "If she took what she bought, that's not theft. That's inventory with rage." Another wrote, "He called the woman who decorated, stocked, and operated his life a gold digger. That's like a tick suing a dog for abandonment." And honestly, hard to argue with either. Op came back to answer a few questions for those asking. No, the property was not in my name and I didn't touch anything structural. I didn't remove built-ins, didn't mess with installed appliances, and didn't take anything he could prove was his. I even separated the silverware by set because I knew exactly which ones were mine and which ones had been in the condo before I moved in. Yes, I had receipts for almost everything. Some items were bought at local stores and I got duplicate receipts. Others were in my card history. I also have text messages from him asking me to buy a lot of those things because he was out of limit or would pay me back later. No, I was never paid a cent for the work I did in his company. Whenever I brought it up, he'd say couples don't formalize help. Very convenient reasoning from a man who also doesn't wash a spoon. Without posting a leadership quote on his story, someone asked why she was still doubting herself. Op replied, "Because when enough people start repeating that you're crazy, greedy, and cruel, part of your brain starts checking to see if you somehow became the villain overnight. That, right there, is the classic side effect of spending too long around manipulative people. They bite you, you defend yourself, and suddenly the problem is your tone of voice while you're bleeding." 3 days later, Op came back with an update. I wish this update were simple. Something like I left, blocked him, and moved on. Unfortunately, Mason is the kind of gift that keeps trying to return itself. After the police incident, I blocked him everywhere. I left email open because I figured I might need a paper trail. Yesterday, I got a message from a law office notifying me that Mason was considering suing me for unlawful appropriation, business damages, and loss of revenue. I laughed. Then I kept reading, and I stopped laughing. Buried in the attached documents was a copy of a business financing agreement listing me as a guarantor. I never signed anything. The document had my full name, my old address, my tax information, and an electronic signature trying to imitate mine. but it looked like it had been written by someone who had seen my handwriting once in a mirror through fog glass. I almost threw up. I immediately called a lawyer friend of Tori's. She told me to file a report, contest the signature, and pull the full financing record. I did all of that yesterday. This morning I found out Mason took that loan out 8 months ago. The money went to his company, and the company is already to payments behind. So while he was calling me a gold digger, he was trying to legally strap me to his debt. The even funnier part is that a woman at the bank told me, very gently, that I probably never would have found out about the contract this soon if Mason's own attorney hadn't attached it as part of the threat. This man handed over proof of fraud to intimidate me. I still don't know whether to laugh, cry, or send a fruit basket to his ego for cooperating so beautifully with the investigation. I also found out something else. The new car he loved showing off wasn't actually his. It was a business lease, and the payments were behind. So all that grand speech about me being with him for the money gets even funnier when, apparently, the money wasn't with him either. Denise has been silent since yesterday, which, coming from her, is basically an eclipse. In the comments, one user wrote, "He literally called you a gold digger while trying to forge you into being his fake guarantor. That's not irony. That's a character disorder." Another said, "This man treated fraud like networking." And someone asked if cheating was involved. I replied, "I didn't have proof before. Now, I have strong suspicion. One of the business charges was for a hotel at a time he told me he was with the client. So yes, the deluxe trash package may come with all accessories." A week later, another update dropped. "Well, now I have proof. His receptionist called me. Not out of loyalty exactly, but because she was tired of being dragged into the chaos." According to her, Mason had been sleeping with a frequent client for months. That same woman, by the way, was the one who started telling him I had the face of a woman who'd take half of everything, and that he needed to protect himself. This happened in the exact same time frame when he forged me into the financing agreement. So, let me summarize this landfill opera. He cheated on me, let his affair partner poison his head, called me a gold digger in front of a table full of people, tried to attach me to a loan I never authorized, and when I simply removed my own belongings from the condo, he started selling himself as the tragic romantic victim looted by the ambitious villain. The other woman has also disappeared, which, apparently, is what happens when the loft echoes. The car might get repossessed, and the fantasy fortune melts faster than dignity in a group of insecure men. As for the legal side, the signature has officially been contested. My lawyer says the bank will probably cooperate because the validation process had embarrassing holes in it. The best part is Mason has now sent me emails asking me not to destroy his life over a stupid mistake. He also said he was in a very dark emotional place. Interesting. When I was in a dark emotional place, he called me dramatic. And here comes the cherry on top. The condo he kept calling his doesn't exactly belong to him. It's in the name of one of his mother's holding companies. So, while he was making jokes about me being after his assets, the assets technically weren't even his. Denise basically built a showroom, son, a counterfeit luxury bag with the confidence of a CEO, and no, before anyone asks. I am not dropping the complaint. Not after the audio, the public humiliation, the fraud, and the attempt to paint me as a criminal. He wanted a gold digger. Now, he gets to meet something worse. Consequences. Double quotes. Honestly. Beautiful, clean, deserved. But it still wasn't over. Because Reddit loves one final punch after the body is already on the floor. Came back one last time almost a month later. Final update because I really want to close this chapter. The investigation moved fast. Faster than I expected, actually. The bank confirmed inconsistencies in the signature the device used to sign. The IP matched his company office. The timestamp matched the night I was at a birthday dinner 40 minutes away. So the conversation has now officially shifted from messy misunderstanding to criminal problem. Mason tried to meet me in the parking lot at my work. I wasn't alone. Tori was with me and recorded the entire thing. He was crying. Not the cinematic crying in the rain kind. More the kind of crying a man does when he has finally discovered his actions also come with legal consequences. He said he never meant to hurt me, that he felt pressured, that his mother had always planted the idea in his head that I was going to take advantage of him, and that the other woman manipulated him. In short, somehow the blame belonged to me. His mother, the mistress, the moon, and if you gave him another 20 minutes, probably interest rates too. I asked him one thing, which part of this exactly wasn't your choice? He didn't answer. That same week, Denise texted me. It wasn't an apology. It was an offer. If I ended everything quietly, they would reimburse me for what I had invested in the house and the company. Imagine that. Suddenly nobody was calling me a thief anymore. Funny how truth sharpens a whole family's tone in record time. My lawyer answered for me. And the strangest part of all this is that his longest-term employee quit and opened his own company. The receptionist quit too. The major clients pulled out. Without the operations I had been handling, the business collapsed. Not because I sabotaged it, because I stopped holding it up. There's a difference. A big one. A bridge doesn't collapse because the person pretending to be a support beam finally steps away. Last week I ran into one of the guys from that dinner at the grocery store. The same one who laughed when Mason called me a gold digger. He came over to apologize. Said that after everything that came out, he realized I wasn't just right, I was probably too kind. I thanked him and walked away. I have no use for delayed redemption from cowardly spectators. As for me, I'm in a smaller apartment now, quiet, fully furnished with my things. My couch looks fantastic. So does my table. And funny enough, now that no one is accusing me of being after money, there seems to be quite a lot more of my own left over. So no, I didn't steal everything from my boyfriend. I just stopped letting him steal from me with a smile. Look, I love it when the title sells you a villain and the story delivers a woman with receipts, boundaries, and timing. Because calling this theft takes a breathtaking amount of creativity. For someone with that little shame, the guy was using her labor, her money, her name, her credit, and her reputation as a punching bag. When she packed up her own things and walked out the door, he learned in the worst possible way that being financially carried looks really ugly. When you're the one being carried. To me, Op gets 0 out of 5 assholes. Mason gets 5 out of 5, a special trophy for corporate grade stupidity. And maybe an empty frame on the wall, since that was apparently all that was left in the condo, and that was the story of a man who called a woman a gold digger before realizing that the only investment in his life with any real value was leaving in labeled boxes. If this story made your blood boil, comment what you would have taken out of that condo and whether OP was too nice, or exactly the kind of elegant chaos some people practically beg to meet.